Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
Please tell us about a biochemist's job. How is your profession important for science? And tell us a few words about your scientific career.
Okay. Who is biochemist? Biochemist is a guy who studies living beings at the chemical level. We are consist of billions chemical compounds, and they are react which are each with other constantly. So biochemistry studies these reactions, how, when, why. I don't involve in biochemistry at the moment, actually. My work is in field of molecular biology and bioinformatics mainly. So I study the genome, gene evolution, the functions of genes in human body, how did they emerge in evolution, how did obtain their functions, etc.
What has been your scientific career so far?
Now I'm a PhD student in Polytechnic, St. Petersburg Polytechnic University. I study, as I said, genome evolution, and I study genome evolution only with my laptop, high-speed internet connection, and I don't need anymore.
Oh, that's very cutting edge.
Because we have a huge amount of data obtained by DNA sequencing, RNA sequencing, different proteome projects. This data is collected in very large, huge data sets. So you just need to make a hypothesis and download this data, mine this data, and you will get some result.
So you can basically process these huge amounts of data working from home and not have to be directly involved with handling the sequences or the sequencing process.
Yes. There is this such thing as wet biology. So the wet biology is biology in a lab. So when you mix different solutions.
Let's move on a bit to how scientists search for life on other planets, what extraterrestrial life could be like if we ever find it. And let's talk in a bit more detail about what must be the conditions on another planet for life to emerge there, life as we know it.
These conditions must be like on Earth, like our conditions. So we need liquid water, we need energy source.
So, in other words, the planet must be inside the so-called habitable zone.
Yes.
It must be close enough to its parent star for liquid water to exist on the surface, and for enough solar radiation to reach the surface of that planet.
We don't even need solar radiation. Visible light is not strongly required, and it's not the only source of the energy even on Earth. We know different bacteria that use chemical reactions to obtain energy from inorganic compounds. Also, recently, very strange bacteria was found, and this bacteria live in very deep caves, hot caves, and this bacteria uses infrared light to make photosynthesis, like plants, like photosynthetic bacteria, but this bacteria doesn't use visible light, it uses infrared light.
So visible light is not a prerequisite of finding life as we know it.
Yes, because
Life can exist underwater, life can exist in deep caves.
Deep cave.
And could you tell us a bit more about the techniques that scientists use to search for life markers on other planets?
Actually, biomarkers.
Biomarkers, they're called, right?
So
what are these techniques?
Yeah, they
Markers.
use biomarkers, and biomarker is some kind of chemical compound in the atmosphere, for example, such as oxygen, carbon dioxide, methane, etc.
So they can be detected by, I think, spectroscopy.
Yes,
right?
of course. Yes, this is, I think, the only way to detect these compounds.
So basically, we analyze the light that comes from that planet, and we figure out what materials it's like reflected from, what compounds it's reflected from, and different compounds have different or emit at different wavelengths, and this should give us a pretty good idea about
emitted or absorb some different wavelengths, and so we will obtain some kind of spectrum, and so we can find these compounds.
So it's pretty straightforward.
And but we need to find not only single biomarker, but we need to find several of them, because yesterday I found a pretty interesting paper which describes the experiment of Japanese scientists who discovered that titanium oxide may catalyze conversion water to the oxygen. So, and this is a inorganic, non-biogenic way to make a large amount of oxygen in the atmosphere. So on Earth, on Earth, the all oxygen we have is produced by plants, by bacteria. But as we know now, it may be produced by a non-biogenic way.
I see. Okay, now when we ultimately go to the Moon and Mars and perhaps find a colony there, or found a colony there, we will need to be self-sustaining. This colony will have to grow its own food, and that means learning how to grow food, how to grow plants, agricultural plants, in lunar soil, in Martian soil. And so the next question is it actually possible to grow plants, terrestrial plants, in something as alien and probably hostile as Martian soil or lunar soil? Is there any difference chemically or physically between these three types of soil? And is it really safe to consume food grown in these alien soils?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah, it's possible, but there are differences between this group of soils. So each soil is different from each other. So, for example, lunar soil is very alkaline. So it is a pretty big trouble to grow a plant in this soil, because alkalis are not good for roots of plants, for example, and they influence absorption ability of plant. So we need to adapt to this soil.
So basically, we have to modify this soil
to modify this soil
before we actually grow agricultural plants there.
Yep.
Right, in it. And what about Martian soil?
Yeah, Martian soil has a big amount of ferric oxide. Then
iron, in other words.
Iron, yeah, of course. Iron oxide. Iron oxide, yeah. Then our soil, and also neither lunar nor Martian soil have a organic compound, but on Earth we have a organic compound in our soil. So also neither lunar nor Martian soil have nitrogen. So there is a lack of nitrogen in these soils, and we need to deliver nitrogen
all the way from Earth
to Moon and
mix
to
it
the
up
Mars.
with local soil
Yes.
to be able to grow plants there. Okay, if we look at this Mark Watney experiment in the movie The Martian, he actually did grow, pretty fair amount of potatoes for food because he had no other choice, and he used some very much available local nutrient, or rather imported nutrient, to enable that growth. But how realistic was is actually growing potatoes in Martian soil? How realistically was it portrayed in the movie?
Yeah, by the way, the another different Martian soil from lunar soil and Earth soil is high concentration of perchlorates. This is a very toxic
it's a type
compound.
of salt, right?
Yeah, a type of salt, and it's toxic for animals, for plants. So we need to remove. We need also to remove this compound. And what about Mark Watney? Yes, he needed to use some kind of fertilizer, as for example, feces.
Right.
And but as I said, there is no nitrogen in Martian soil, and he couldn't grow a field of a potato field.
Right.
It's I think he could grow only several potato plants, but not.
Which would certainly have been much less than what was needed to sustain him, right? He wouldn't have survived until the rescue mission arrived.
No, he couldn't.
He couldn't have made it.
He couldn't survive
Okay.
because nitrogen. So he had nitrogen only from
the natural fertilizer, shall we
natural,
say it?
Yeah, natural fertilizer, and the nitrogen in his body. So it's not enough.
And that wasn't enough. So that was actually the main obstacle to growing food on Mars without importing nitrogen, which obviously he couldn't do. Right. So that's quite interesting. And now you're known to have created your own lunar soil simulant, and
yes, it is.
Could you show it to us and tell us a bit about it?
So this is my own artificial simulant.
That's interesting.
So
it looks pretty similar to lunar soil, but I think the color is a bit different.
Yeah, color is a bit different, and its composition a bit different. Not chemical composition, but mineral composition.
Mineral composition.
Mineral composition. Yeah. So I need to change conditions of synthesis of this simulant to reach original mineral composition.
But you could grow some crops or plants in this one, could you?
Yes, I think I can, but it's future. It's in the future, so.
Because you need to upgrade it to Lunar Simulant version 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's experimental. It's just the first attempt to make this simulant, so I need to improve it.
I see. Right. Great. We hope you do that. It's great. Okay, and finally, are you involved in any international collaboration on in the fields of biochemistry or molecular biology, or are you planning to be involved in any such collaboration, in particular in terms of growing crops in lunar Martian simulants? Do you have any plans for this?
I have one project with my German colleagues, and also I'm in contact with colleagues from Netherlands. These guys grown radish, potato, and tomato.
Tomatoes as well. Yeah.
Tomato, yeah.
Is it the
they
team
could.
that actually made the headlines all around the world 1 or 2 years ago?
Yes, it's them. So I'm going to work with them. I want.
That's fantastic. That's
So
fantastic.
I already have a connection with them. So we're trying to keep in touch with each other. So, and I think I'll manage to make a big international project with this.
That's fantastic. Just make sure you keep updating us on this. Okay. And finally, what would be a message to young scientists, not only in biochemistry, but in any area of science? What would you encourage them to do in order to pursue their scientific goals and ambitions in this rapidly changing modern world?
I can't to make a inspiring speech, but just do it. So just do it, and I don't know, live long and prosper.
So basically, they need to stay true to their calling, right?
Yeah. So just some optimism,
positive energy, positive thinking, positive outlook.
And if your study is interesting for you, you will do it.
You'll always find a way to go through any obstacles and reach the top.
Of course.
Right, go to the top. Yeah.
So So just you should choose your way in science, and this way must be interesting for you,
and stick to it.
And
yeah. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thanks for coming to us, and we hope to talk to you again in the future.
I hope so.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.